Well, we welcome you all here to the International GT Open ahead of our second race of the weekend here at Barcelona here in Spain. We are now coming into the final frontier of the season, 4.657 kilometers in length, 14 turns in total, 8 to the right, 6 to the left, with 60 minutes with a driver change window from the 24th minute to the 36th, as we now look ahead to crown yet another champion. Obviously at the top of the shop, it's Christopher Haase starting on pole position as we now take a look at the helicopter cam taking us through across this fantastic circuit here at Montemelo, Barcelona. Opened all the way back in 1991 on the 10th of September. Air temperature standing at 24 degrees. Humidity has taken a decline with a track temperature of 28 degrees as we make our way through the weekend. Obviously, now looking ahead with all the drivers on the grid, I'm going to quickly swap headsets with one, the only Ewan Dunlop, and we'll bring him into the show as well. So now I'm back on headset one. So it is Iserlohn starting on pole position. Christopher Haase, the German, starting on pole position with Dominic Baumann on the front row with him as well. A Mercedes versus an Audi, as now Iserlohn are looking to bring the points gap closer to our current championship leader, Levente Reves, with the Spa 500 earlier on in the year. We've got another 500 race coming up next in Italy when we go to Monza. Second row, Tommaso Mosca, fresh after back-to-back wins at both Paul Ricard and Red Bull Ring. And of course, that was taken in both race 2 and race 1 of both events sequentially. And catching up with Mosca earlier on, he feels quietly confident, I think, ahead of the race coming up. Starting on the second row also, Ralph Aaron, the Estonian, will be swapping in for Marcelo Ramirez when the time comes. Obviously, the driver change window is going to be a busy one with drivers that did not start yesterday's race featuring at the start of this one. And 2Cs, we welcome Charles Dawson and Mackenzie Cresswell. This time it's the turn of young Mackenzie to take the seat of the 2Cs motorsport car. Of course, the 19-year-old from Kingston upon Thames, who has taken part in British F4 as well as GB3, FIA Formula 3 as well as GB3 again in 2024. GT4 Winter Series was profitable for him. He is a champion in that with 6 wins and stands ahead of Levente Reves and Maxi Goertz. And the return of the elite racing Ferrari. Tom Emson taking the start. Tom Leben will be doing the second stint. They had a power failure towards the start of the race and had to retire the car in race 1, and they'll stand ahead of Philippe Salicada from Team ISR Audi R8, who will be looking for a big start as well in Pro-Am class. They've got Matteo Cairoli, though, for company, who steps in place of Lucas Dunner, who's not very well this weekend, but Heiko Neumann will, of course, be joining Matteo Cairoli for this initial stint. And then, of course, we move down into P10. Dean McDonald lining up on the grid for Greystone GT alongside James Kell. Of course, they had some problems of their own yesterday after a couple of spins for Dean McDonald, and he will look ahead to this next race in a bid to try and recover the damage. George Morgan here in the commentary box alongside me once again. It's Ewan Dunlop.
Thank you, George. Always a pleasure to be here, and I'm glad to say, like, the rain's held off. We were due thunderstorms this afternoon from about 2 o'clock onwards. It is now 20 past 2, and things look, I must say, absolutely fine. We did have a downpour this morning. If you were tuning in for qualifying, I'm sure you were. You'd know what we mean. It was a little bit chaotic, but we got rain. We got there safely done, and we now have our second of the championship and reigning champion on the top spot, as George has mentioned. There's the car number 6. That is the car of Steve Jans in the Pro-Am competition. And if we look at things like the driver statistics, a couple of wins, there's been as far as 6 podiums so far this season for Christopher Haase and Levente Reves, and Simon Riker with 6, obviously with Haase. Reves is 5 in that respect. However, the people that have led the most laps entirely this season, in fact, Anthony Bartone and Fabian Schiller in the car number 9, with its fantastic sort of desert camo livery. But the grid right now absolutely heaving with people. There's the Greystone GT of Jaden Kelly in the car number 27.
Of course, had the breakthrough round back at Red Bull Ring. Now looking to come back strong again as we take a look at the Greystone GT. McLaren getting set for yet another race. We've also got Oregon Team Lamborghini back, this time with Rodrigo Testa commencing the start of this race. Has taken part in Lamborghini Super Trofeo competition in Italian GT in recent times. Of course, it's going to be alongside his teammate Robin Rogalski for this race. Then in behind we have Anthony Bartone alongside Fabian Schiller. As always, had a good result yesterday, finishing 3rd overall. And the familiar Anthony Bartone shark-faced helmet as well, embracing the camo livery. And from one striking livery to another, we reintroduced Fabio Babini, freshly off the back of starting the GT Cup Europe race just before this one. And he's back in the hot seat again, this time in the International GT Open, Ewan.
That is quite a quick turnaround, isn't it? That race finished about 5 minutes ago. Hey, if you just love racing driving, why not? And you can afford to. So the great drone shot just heading over the grid towards the back. Now there's 1 kilometre start-finish straight here in Barcelona, the longest on the circuit. A chance to put your foot down as you come around turn 14 and make your way all the way as far as the eye can see. Just moving towards the back of the grid, we're going to find Riemann Vos in the 74, Alfredo Hernandez, Stanislav Jeslinski and Armiris Naran.
So let's take you through the highlights from yesterday. It was a great start for Josh Rattigan, who started on pole position. He was then, of course, met at the same time by Maxi Goetz at the start of the race. The Optima Motorsport McLaren having a bit of an uncomfortable run onto the grass coming in towards turn 1. That was, of course, Mikey Porter behind the wheel of that one. Simon Riker also had to take to the escape road along with the SBS Performance Mercedes further back, which shows you the get speed as well in the mixer. Eventually, Goetz came in. Championship leader Levente Ravesh taking over the wheel for the second stint. And also later on, Josh Rattigan would hand over to Jaden Kelly. It was a fantastic race on Christopher Haas's count as well, swiftly moving past Anthony Bartone on the rise up out of Verth Curve through towards Camser, and he did the same again on the Greystone GT of Jaden Kelly in the latter stint, so twice at the same corner, pulled off by Haase. Jaden Kelly then ran a little bit wide off the back of turn 10 while trying to get past Amir Naran. That allowed Anthony Bartone to move on through into P3, but then it was Levente Ravesh hitting the checkered flag and deepening the gap between himself and the Easterland team of Simon Riker and Christopher Haase in the championship. And we can take a look at the numbers now as we speak. Levente Ravesh on 126 points ahead of Christopher Haase and Simon Riker. And then there's a 23-point gap to Tommaso Mosca and Carl Bennett, who still are in it mathematically. Tom Emson and Tom Leben also looking for a big race today. And not forgetting, we've got the Spa 500 coming up at the end of the season. So race 2 about to get underway, and we can run you through the starting grid now from top to bottom. And on pole position, it will be Christopher Haase after a fantastic start to the morning, and he is ahead of Dominic Baumann. Once again on pole here, Haase, and looking to take it from lights to flag with Simon Riker. Tommaso Mosca in 3rd alongside Ralph Aaron on row 2. So that's Ferrari versus Mercedes on the run down through towards turn 1. Then in P5 on the 3rd row, Mackenzie Cresswell for 2C's Motorsport. Levente Ravesh, championship leader, looking to come back again, starting from 6. Next up, Tom Emson, starting in 7th. Of course, Elite will be hoping they can actually start this race alongside Philippe Salicada on the 4th row of the grid. 5th row, Matteo Cairoli on his return in place of Lucas Dunner, lines up alongside Dean McDonald, who is looking to bounce back, this time for Greystone GT. Carol Bash for Ferrari 296, now Olymp car, alongside Marcus Pavary for Santalok on the 6th row. 7th row, it's Steve Jans alongside Zach Meakin from 14th place. They will run. 15th place then going to Jamie Stanley, who will hand over to Laurent Demeas when the driver change opens up. Jaden Kelly taking the initial stint. This time we'll hand over to Josh Rattigan. Rodrigo Testa starting from 17th with Anthony Bartone in 18th place in the Mercedes-AMG GT3. 19th spot for Fabio Babini in the Porsche. And then alongside him, Adam Ali in the Z06 Corvette. Next up in P21 is Charlie Hollings, lines up 21st place alongside Francesco Simonazzi in his first weekend in the Oregon Team Lamborghini Squadron. Then Arden Goodmanson starting from 23rd alongside Kalila Letlarka in 24th place. 25th for Dexter Muller, lines up alongside Gino Forgione in 26 in the Ferrari. 27th going to Louis-Michael Dorbecker alongside Antol Zygo, of course, the BMW that went on to win in AM class yesterday. Riemann Vos in 29th, ahead of Alfredo Hernandez in 30th. We then move on down to 31st place, where Stanislav Jeslinski lines up alongside Amir Naran, who did not set a time in qualifying this morning. So now we have the formation lap to tee up a 60-minute race, 1 whole hour to take you through from lights to flag. The fans all in the grandstands. We have also quite a few spectators watching from the rooftops there on the left-hand side here at the GT Open's home race at Barcelona. Should be a spicy start here, Ewan.
Yeah, they always are. Can't wait with so many cars on the grid, so many competitive cars too. It's going to be another absolute thriller to end our weekend at the GT. But oh, there's been a staller on the start.
That's Amir Naran, and of course did not get out of the pit lane this morning for the qualifying session, did not set a lap, so that car is now stagnant again, Ewan.
And there's going to be 3 marshals running in his direction as quickly as possible. He's only got about 2.5 minutes before they get round. So there are yellow flags showing on the start-finish straight. He was last on the grid due to that non-start yesterday. So whether they can get this started somehow, there are now 5 marshals going to be pushing his car into the exit wall to the right-hand side of the start-finish straight. So they have got to get a real move on, because they were here as well as we can. The car's making their way halfway around the track already.
Yeah, not ideal at all. They come down through turn 5 and then take the mainstay of the middle sector before they head into sector 3. But at the moment, Christopher Haase will, of course, lead them down through towards turn 1. Dominic Baumann, second place. The safety car, of course, will peel into the pit lane before they then take to racing action for the second time this weekend. Our last stop before the Monza 500 that will be coming up next round. What's the latest, Ewan?
They can't get this car moved. It's like he's got the handbrake on. That car is not moving at all. They've got 7 marshals trying to push this car forwards or backwards, doesn't matter. They cannot get it off the grid. Well,
they might have to start everyone under the safety car, apparently. They're still saying follow the safety car on our screens at the moment, but then that's relatively standard at this point during the formation lap. But we'll await now. Apparently the safety car has been officially deployed now, so that's obviously in response now to the current incident. So that's going to probably mean that they continue. And yes, the marshals just busy crowding around Amir Naran's Mercedes-AMG GT3 at the moment, as we're looking out the commentary box window, and they're still trying to push. There's about 5 marshals, no, 6, no, maybe that's 7 marshals all stood around it trying to move it, but it is stuck on the grid.
How many marshals does it take to push a car? That's a question
at the
for
moment.
You. More than 7.
More than 7, clearly.
I've just seen the drone come into view as well. We're going to get a picture of this. There we are. And they've tried to push it forward. They've tried to push it backwards. It is like it's glued. Oh, they're going to go through the pit lane as well.
Yeah, so the race start is going to be taken through the pit lane, but they're going to remain under safety car conditions until they get this car back underway. This is all for safety measures, everybody. Now, I can tell you that they've opened up the pit wall, so they can get direct access through to the pit lane if they can get that car moved. But at the moment, Amir Naran's Vermaanebay Get Speed Mercedes-AMG GT3 has not moved a muscle, and therefore all the cars that are due to take the start are now all featuring inside the pit lane due to the safety measures. Understandable, of course, by race control, but I think there's now 3 marshals dispersing, I think just to sort of alert some of the recovery crews to come along and bring the recovery truck. And I can tell you there is a recovery truck waiting to come in. They're just waiting for the long stretch of cars to make their way through the pits and back out onto the circuit so they can collect this Vermaanebay Get Speed Mercedes-AMG GT3. But it's been a poor day at the office for Amir Naran. Didn't take a single lap on board in qualifying, obviously suffering perhaps the same issue, and they can't get it started for the race.
Yeah, but that's going to be a little red-faced, isn't it? Now, this recovery truck that I can see, I'm not sure how that's going to get to him either, because obviously got the wall in between them, and I can't see this recovery truck getting through this gap here either.
Well, it looks
so
like
it might have to go the long way around.
No, they're moving the...
oh, it does move a little...
Yeah, they're moving it a little bit.
I'm not sure.
They're going to make it through, no problem at all. It looks narrower from where our view is. He's bringing the truck onto the course now, but the cars are still going around the circuit under safety car at the moment. And now the recovery truck makes its way down through towards the stricken car. You're not seeing this, by the way, folks. We're currently seeing it outside our commentary box window at the moment, and very soon Amir Naran's car is going to be attended to. Obviously, I wonder how they're going to push it or pull it, because if it is handbraked in place, that's going to be a challenge.
It is going to be unceremoniously dragged onto that truck, because, yeah, it's not moving at all. I'm guessing the handbrake is off. However, clearly mechanical, sticking it on.
They're going to try and get the winch to try and tow it.
It's the only way.
I mean, that might be the answer. They're keeping Amir Naran in the car and just drag it with the recovery vehicle, but we'll we'll wait and see. At the moment, it's Haase, Baumann and Mosca. Obviously, technically, the race is underway. The timer is ticking, folks, so we have taken the start. But we are under safety car procedure here in the International GT Open.
This will be frustrating Christopher Haase, because starting from the front, he would want to build as big a gap as possible. He's lost.
This is bad news for Easterlent Audi. I mean, the one benefit is that they've got Dominic Baumann in the Pro-Am P1, but also second overall. So, you know, whilst he's there, it's going to be a little bit difficult for Tommaso Mosca to get past. Ralph Aaron as well down in 4th place. Mackenzie Cresswell further back too. I suppose they can rest happily knowing that obviously there's still work to be done for Levente Reves, who obviously is still further down the rostrum, down in 6th place. But at the end of the day, you know, you want to make use of as much time as you can on your opening stint, especially if you've got Christopher Haase behind the wheel. This could very easily go against Easterlent Racing, but they're coming through the pit lane now, and
they've managed to move it about a yard.
Yeah, they're still working on it at the moment. The car's now coming through the pits, and the safety car, obviously, as per safety, they're taking the gaggle of cars through an almighty grid of 32, obviously not including Amir Naran, who makes it 33, but they're now pushing the car onto the recovery truck as we speak. So not the way they would have wanted to finish the weekend at Vimana by Get Speed, but again, if we look back at some of the drivers that are going to be opting in for drivers for their second stint, obviously this could prove to be useful for Optimum Motorsport Zach Meakin, because of course Mikey Porter will be taking up the drive later on. And also if we have a look at the Pro-Am in detail, of course we got it's bad news for obviously the partnership of Matteo Cairoli and Heiko Neumann, because obviously they'd want to make use of Cairoli in the opening stint. Carol Bash also could fall afoul of this, because they'll be swapping out for Marcin Jedlinski. This could throw a potential option for Santalot Racing for the Pro-Am lead. Steve Jans, of course, handing over later on to Aaron Walker. That could be good news for them in terms of their own hopes in the Pro-Am title race. Of course, they're being challenged by Dominic Baumann and Valentin Pierberg at the moment. And obviously Baumann's stint is being ate into as well at this very early stage. But we'll have to wait and see. There's quite a few teams in Pro-Am class that are starting with essentially the pro driver in the car. So, and I can't really see many that are going to be finishing with a pro driver. I mean, I would say out of the bunch, Michael Blanchimont is probably the best suited out of the bunch in Pro-Am, but we'll have to wait and see. Obviously still very early days to call it at the moment. Charlie Hollings, of course, leading the AM class alongside Mark Sampson, who will do the next stint.
Now, Amir Naran's car has been removed from the grid, and we were at turn number 7, 8, so I would anticipate the lights coming off the safety car in the next minute or so before we get back to the grid. They've got to close the gap in the wall, and there are no marshals on the track now, so I would anticipate that we get a good sign shortly, and we're going to go racing.
Yeah, you can just see, obviously, the indicators on the small screen on the Greystone GT car of Jaden Kelly. Just a little bit of an added indicator to show the cars that are behind. And it looks like we're going to take one more lap into the safety car. Essentially, we can call this the additional rolling start here at this point. But, of course, they won't be lining up in double file as they were before. It will be single file down through towards turn 1, which is great news if you're Christopher Haase, because you won't have, theoretically, any challenges immediately from Dominic Baumann alongside. So that plays into his hand to a certain degree, but they can now use the full track now this time. They don't have to come into the pit lane, and indeed the safety car is going to follow the normal route as deemed by race control. So car 75 has been asked to check its lights. That's Philip Salakada. By the looks of it, has it on full beam at the moment. Of course, part of the ISR Audi crew, so not quite sure what that's regarding, but of course there are messages out to the drivers that they've got to have lights on due to possible rain during the race. So by the looks of it, Salakada putting his lights on now to make sure it conforms to race control's direction.
Now, looking around north, south, east and west, it actually seems to be improving over the last half an hour or so. Yes, we've had thunders and rain all forecast. We've been talking about it in the entire weekend. The conversation in the paddock, a lot even on Friday afternoon, was all about the weather on Sunday. And other than I must say, it was a pretty heavy downpour this morning in qualifying. It has not come to the afternoon fruition that we were all expecting, which is great, because we don't want any more delays on top of what we've already had with the car on the grid, of course. So they will turn around the left-hander, turn number 5, and within the next 90 seconds, for the first time today in the GT Open, we should go racing, George.
Yep, safety car confirmed in this lap. So we will be going green very shortly. Haase leading them through the middle sector behind the safety car, though the safety car will now eventually depart, and it'll be all down to Haase to lead the cars through the final sector, where eventually he will light up the Audi R8 and in a bid to thunder his way down through towards turn 1, and he'll be hoping that they can take it from lights to flag. It's going to be a tricky one, though. Got a chance to talk to Simon Riker. Obviously, there is a big mystery as to what the weather's going to do as well later on. We're all unsure. Tommaso Mosca also unsure as to what's going to occur, and I think that's the beauty of racing here at this point. So strap yourselves in, folks. This is going to be one extraordinary encounter. We've only got 51 minutes remaining now. We've taken an entire near 10 minutes out of the race already, but the safety car is now careered onwards, so it's now Haase on his own up at the front. Dominic Baumann just sat in behind, leading the Pro-Am class. The leading Am is Charlie Hollings in the 188. Also the McLaren 720S GT3 that is also being driven by Mark Sampson for Garage 59 as now they come through the final corner at turn 14. And for the first time, properly under green flags, they will now put pedal to the metal, and it will be go, 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 go. Great start for Christopher Haase, getting us underway. Dominic Baumann further back too. They've got a gaggle of cars there further back as well, and it looks like one has dropped back quite vehemently as now they make their way down through towards turn 1. 2 Seas Motorsports under attack as now around the outside comes Levente Revesz, and he looks to plant one on. Another Mercedes MG GT3, and it will be Revesz on the move. And he now makes his way through ahead of Mackenzie Cresswell into P5, and also joining him, Tom Emson, getting a great start too. And I wonder, did he manage to jump ahead of Levente Revesz there? I'm not quite sure. Let's have a look. No, not quite. But he's ahead of Mackenzie Cresswell. Elite start the race for the first time this weekend as they make their way through the right-hander. Cairoli down into 10th place. Bash up to 9th. McDonald up to 8th. Great start for them in the Greystone GT. But it's Revesz and Emson up a place apiece. 5th and 6th with Mackenzie Cresswell down in 7th. Meakin ahead of Salakada into 13th place. And there we can see side by side again as Meakin tries to take on Steve Jans.
Perfect start for Christopher Haase. Now, with those laps under the safety car, it does mean there are only 14 minutes until the driver change opens. Can't believe we're mentioning that already, but it is going to be significant. The track temperature, since we started this race, has dropped about 3 degrees to 27. Air temperature dropping also, and humidity is back on the rise. That suggests, yes, there could potentially be a bit of a precipitation coming our way.
Yeah, nice bit of movement here as well, further back as we see Dean McDonald trying to attack Mackenzie Cresswell in the 2 Seas Motorsport AMG Mercedes. Coming through the final sector once again, Haase still leads. 0.8 of a second now has been developed between Baumann and Haase, with Tommaso Mosca, of course, also part of the pro class, leading a contingent of them, including Aaron, Revesz and Emson. As they come through the final corner, and indeed it does look like that even Carol Bash, I think, has managed to get past Mackenzie Cresswell, and yes, he has. So McDonald and Bash moving up a place apiece. It looks like Cresswell could be on the wrong end of things again with Matteo Cairoli, as now in comes Tom Emson. Another look around the outside, this time of Levente Revesz. Through goes the Motorpark Mercedes of Matteo Cairoli. So that's P9 now for Cairoli. McDonald obviously now remaining in 7th place. Bash joining him as well. Bartone up to 17th ahead of Rodrigo Testa. It's part of the Oregon team Lamborghini crew, but with 49 minutes to go, Haase now still 8/10 ahead. Steve Jans getting past Marcus Pavarud. So the Santalok driver now moving down into 12th as Baumann tries to keep Mosca in behind, but they've got a queue of cars also further back with Ralph Aaron, Levente Revesz, Tom Emson and McDonald. The gaps are now once again coming down, starting to constrain. The biggest one of all is between Dean McDonald and Tom Emson in 6th place.
Yeah, Tom Emson and Tom Leben desperately need a good result today after dropping points in the championship. No points picked up yesterday after that trouble they had in the pits. So they now find themselves 29 points behind the championship leader, which was only 16 coming into the weekend, so they need everything to go their way. Let's hook up.
Yeah, that is Kalila Letlaka, who has gone off there for Dragon Racing into the gravel trap. He's just almost driven off by himself almost after coming toe-to-toe with Team Tour. Not quite sure what happened there, just maybe a bit of a misguided moment as he ventured into the gravel, but he will rejoin. A bit of a mystery. Big lunge down the inside here from Tommaso Mosca as well, trying to take on Dominic Baumann. Of course, this didn't actually lead to a P2. I believe on screen. At the moment, Baumann still sits second in our timing screen. Oh no, it looks like it does. Mosca has taken P2. So there we have it. It's just corrected itself on our timing screen now. So Mosca getting the move done. Baumann dropped down to third place. So now Ralph Aaron closing up on the back. And now Tom Empson up around the outside of Levente Reves once again. So the championship leader coming under stress. Of course, Maxi Goertz be doing the second stint. And Empson, of course, handing over to Tom Leben for the second stint. I tell you what, don't count out Elite Racing Ferrari here, because I have to tell you, for that second stint, they're going to be in a very good position because they've got no handicap to serve for the second half of the race. Yeah,
Tommaso Mosca and Carl Bennett, other than race 2 at Red Bull Ring and yesterday here in Barcelona, they had 4 podiums in a row. The team on form, including 2 wins, 1 at Paul Ricard and 1 in race 1 at Red Bull Ring, did put them within touching distance of the championship leaders until the 1-2 from Revesh, Haase and Riker yesterday. So they are 23 points off the top spot, a bit like Tom Leben and Tom Empson. They need today to be a very good day to go into Monza within touching distance of that championship.
Yeah, definitely do. We're running on board now with Marcus Pavrud as he now heads uphill, chasing after Zach Meakin, who in turn is now chasing after Steve Jans. Of course, Meakin, like we said before, handing over to Mikey Porter as part of the young combination at Optimum Motorsport, who've always been stellar supporters of the International GT Open, champions as well in the past with Charlie Fagg and Sam Dehan as they go late on the brakes again. And just look at Zach Meakin, he's trying absolutely everything to try and displace Steve Jans at the moment, but Jans putting the car in all the right places, got a chance to catch up with him earlier on. Of course, representing the Get Speed team as looked after by team boss Adam Osaka as they head downhill again in towards the final corner. Of course, Mackenzie Cresswell now getting a little bit of a gap in return after Jans has been trying to basically put the defensive on against Zach Meakin in behind. Tommaso Mosca getting closer to the back of Christopher Haase. Of course, Ferrari very well versed in straight line speed situations. Again, you can see that from Tom Empson as he now tries to climb all over the back of Levente Reves, and it looks like they're going wheel to wheel through turns 1 and turns 2 as well at the moment. And yes, they are. There you can see them. Tom Empson having a look around the outside, trying his luck. And you can just see how good this Ferrari is in that straight line situation against the Mercedes-AMG GT3. Obviously, Empson not going to go for anything around turn 4 just yet, but he's been trying with all his might to take down Levente Reves. And now Carol Bash, also in a Ferrari 296 GT3, trying his luck too. There's another look there from Mosca, and that might have hindered his run coming out of turn 5, but did expertly well to carry it around. Haase could be in trouble here.
It is fascinating seeing how the different vehicles have benefit in different areas, whether it's cornering or straight line speed or apex sitting. The Mercedes, the AMG, the Lamborghinis, the Ferraris, and of course the Porsches. It's wonderful. If you can get 3 or 4 in a row, a different model of vehicle, it is fascinating.
Yeah, Dean McDonald also looking aggressive at the moment. It's already gained a few places, and in large contrast to what we saw yesterday. And just look at this from Tom Empson, catching Levente Reves unawares here. Now looking to move into 5th place. Reves, though, hanging it deep around the inside, just trying to keep position, ready to hand it over to Maxi Goertz. In the not-too-distant future, we're talking 8 minutes and 40 until that driver change window opens up. And look at the train in behind as well, because Carol Bash is in this, and that pole is going to be looking to try and move up the order because he's going to be handing over to Marcin Jedlinski for the second half of the stint. And look at this, Dean McDonald onto the gravel and chewing up some of the grass as well. Does that offer an olive branch here for Carol Bash as they come down through towards turn 1? Dean McDonald going uber defensive as they now climb down through towards turn 1. The lights ablaze on the front of the Ferrari 296 as it aggressively looks to the outside. Dean McDonald covering off the move. Great defence from McDonald. He'll withstand the pressure and remain in 7th.
That is incredible. Great defensive move until Carol Bash read it or everything as well. But into turn 1, and he held him off, Dean McDonald. And now he'll continue to chase forward, but all over the back of him, Carol Bash, the experienced Carol Bash. But behind him also is Matteo Cairoli, currently running 3rd in the Pro-Am. Carol Bash in front of him in P2.
Big move from Mosca, up the inside on our race leader, Christopher Haase, and what a move it was! Race lead now in the palm of the Ferrari's hand. Tommaso Mosca, out of nowhere, catching Haase unawares, and that doesn't happen very often.
You can't look away, can you?
My goodness me.
You glimpse at the timing screen, you look back and something's happened.
He left it late coming in towards turn 5. The move was on. Let's have a look at the replay. Haase obviously thinking that he had the better line regardless. Mosca trying his luck and carrying the speed of that Ferrari through turn 5. And what a move that was. That was outstanding. And a nice golf clap given. And there is, oh my goodness. Now that is Marcus Pavarud, who is currently sat on the gravel. Well, half on the gravel, half on the curb. And that looks like his day might come to an end here unless he can self-right. That is a yellow flag at turn 7, everybody. And Kalila Letlarka also off as well.
And this could be the ways, if you're going backwards into the gravel, you ain't getting out of that stuff. If you're going forward, yeah, you might be able to row through it, but that looks like it might be stranded. Safety car deployed. And we're only 6.5 minutes from driver changeover. And
I tell you now, this is, again, not great news. Oh, my goodness.
Dear.
They got fire in the back there. You can just see the response straight away from Marcus Pavarud, just directing the marshals to point the hose into the back of the car. They're going to need to get the recovery truck. That car's not moving an inch out there off the back of that. So it does confirm my fears that they will be out of the race. That is Santalok out, folks. Here at this point in the early stages, we've had some high drama here. Already losing a car at the start of the race after Amir Naran couldn't get his off the line. And now seeing Santalok's Marcus Pavarud come to a grinding halt. Never nice to end your weekend like this. And this is actually side by side with the other Audi, the ISR. Oh, basically getting pushed through the gravel. That is extraordinary. And I must say, the ISR Audi is fortunate enough to remain out on track right now. This is the view from Marcus Pavarud's perspective.
Bang, 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 bang.
We can see the hand gesturing as well. Obviously, probably can't believe what's happened to him, really. There's Kalila Letlarka coming out to the apex of the corner, spinning.
Don't do that.
And it's not the first time he's done that. Of course, he's managed to spin it off track, so it's relatively safe as long as he doesn't rejoin in a dangerous position. This is the view from Jaden Kelly, who obviously inherited on-track overall positions off the back of this, now sits in P14. But the car's now being requested to come down to a grinding halt. I mean, this is not ideal for either Mosca or Haase right now at the front end of the rostrum, because it only invites more pressure from essentially the Mercedes. I mean, Levente Reves is going to be handing over to Maxi Gertz later on. This could be a double win here for Motorpark.
In terms of that driver changeover, let's anticipate it's going to be a couple of laps under the safety car, with the driver changeover opening in just under 5 minutes' time. So you cannot do a driver swap under the safety car. However, the race director can extend the pit window. That is the kind of situation we might find ourselves in.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we can't jump to conclusions just yet because, of course, we've still got racing to be had. The change-on in question has been delayed, so that's actually good news for both Mosca and Haase. They'll get more time behind the wheel. Obviously, you'll have the full allocation of change time because the change is due to start in the next 4 minutes and 20. So they will delay the change-on, obviously, to allow more racing for Haase and Mosca, so that'll mitigate some of the damage. But at the same time, you've still got the likes of, you know, Ralph Aaron in behind, who will be swapping out for Marcelo Ramirez, but you've also got Levente Reves handing over to Maxi Gertz. He's going to be dangerous for the second stint. And we talk about some of the numbers as well in terms of the handicaps. I mean, Levente Reves will be coming in. It'll be a 10-second handicap additional to the norm that they must serve. So they're going to be doing that. We also have 10 seconds going to see our car barn by SBS Performance. Of course, Dexter Muller, Yannick Mettler in Pro-Am after their first win of the season in class yesterday. 10 seconds also going to Garage 59 of Mark Sampson and Charlie Hollings. Elsewhere, though, we can also talk about the Tom Emerson and Tom Leben car, because that's not going to be hit by a handicap for this race. And look at where they are, just behind Reves. So big chance for the Elite Racing team here on their return after the problems they had yesterday. And
they need big points as well. Second place in race 2 at Barcelona. They got a win in the Hungaroring, a couple of podiums elsewhere in Portimao and Hockenheim, but getting no points yesterday. This has got, if they want to keep even the smallest flicker of a dream alive in the championship, they need an incredibly good day today and things to fall their way. And this might be exactly what they need.
Well, the good news for them is that with the lack of points scored in race 1 at Red Bull Ring, and also the lack of points scored at race 1 yesterday here in Barcelona, they can use those two as drop scores. So they don't actually lose any points off the back of that, but they need the next 2 races, like including this one, obviously, to be absolutely perfect if they want to still be in with a hope in the championship. And I would suggest that means a win here at Barcelona and a win at Monza.
You're
ideally.
right in the fact that above them, Tommaso Moscon and Carl Bennett, they are currently scheduled to drop 6 points, which would make them tied in the championship right now.
So if anything, I hazard to say that if anything, to what Tom Leben and Tom Emson are thrusted directly into the championship equation. But obviously, there's a lot of racing to be had in between now and then. So hang on to your hats, folks. That's what I will say.
Now, you mentioned the penalty for Mark Sampson and Charlie Hollings. That will play a big part too, because they are currently tied at the top of the championship, or Mark Sansom is. He's tied at the top of the championship in the AM competition with Gino Forgione and Michele Rugolo. They currently lead the AM class in 20th place overall at the moment. Here's another replay of the incident. And it was just a, like you said, he's lucky to get through there, the Audi on the right-hand side, and find a way back to the racetrack. Because that could have been 2 cars beached, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So they are tied on 104 at the minute in the AM competition. Gino Forgione currently down in 26th place. But with this safety car and driver changeover opening imminently afterwards, then that penalty will play into the hands of the team they currently share that lead with.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Who's Alexander West? Yeah, that AM is a 2-car race right now, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really strong season for Gino Forgione and Michele Rugolo. Of course, Michele Rugolo, one of the many legends we've had competing in this championship and could be champion again here in the AM class of the International GT Open. Mark Sampson, though, looking to bring some success to the Garage 59 team, and it'll be wonderful for them if they can pull something off as well. Of course, arriving into this race on 104 points square with Gino Forgione and Michele Rugolo. So we take a look at the slow-mo of the cars making their way through. There's Ravesh, championship leader in car number 11, closely followed by the 17 of Tom Emson. It's been all about the youth, as we've said all season long, and with the wins that have been collected by Ravesh and also equally by the Elite Racing, the Elite Motorsport Ferraris, who only have the one GT3 car, and that's this one, the recovery truck now, looking to collect the stricken Santalok Racing Audi. Hopefully we'll be able to go back racing very soon. Still no movement on the driver change window, with the clock is still ticking. We've got 35 minutes and 50 until the end of the race. So effectively, we're going to have an almighty sprint right to the end, and with every single car that's still racing here in close quarter. So it's going to be a furious finish here, and it could be largely dictated by the driver change window when it arrives.
The changeover window should have opened on a standard race with 36 minutes to race. We are beyond that now. It is a 12-minute changeover. So let's say we even get to 30 minutes until that changeover opens with that car still stranded. It looked, by the looks of things, that they were struggling to get it on the back of the wagon because there was too much gravel in the way. Did see a couple of shovels out there shoveling gravel out of the way. So I anticipate, obviously, minimum at least 1 more lap under the safety car, potentially 2. That gives you 5 minutes, so we're down to 30. Then we've got a 12-minute driver changeover. They'll potentially give us 1 racing lap to get some racing in before they open that driver changeover. So then you're left with around about 25 to somewhere between 15 and 25 minutes to go racing for your second driver. This is incredibly significant.
Yeah, the driver change window is going to be exacerbated by all of this that's going on at the moment. Obviously, when you have the narrow racing points, really. There's Jerry Canavicio, of course, team boss of Oregon Team Lamborghini. And his highest driver at the moment, of course, he has 19 of Rodrigo Testa, currently making his way around the track as well at the moment. Francesco Simonazzi in the 63 and 21st, just trying to get past Charlie Hollings at the moment. Obviously, no overtaking under the safety car, as I'm sure all of you tuning in very well know. We do appreciate your company as well, wherever you're watching around the globe, here in the International GT Open in our final weekend with a 2-race weekend. Obviously, we go down to the single enduro for our next round at Monza. With the Spa, very similar to the Spa 500 that we had earlier on this campaign. That saw victory for Levente Reves and Maxi Goetz. Of course, that was Maxi Goetz's first race in the International GT Open for this season. And obviously, in the process, putting Revesz in the pound seats for the championship lead.
Car 26 is moving. It is on the back of the wagon. See just its tracker moving very slowly between turns 7 and 9.
I think the safety car has been prior warned of this as well, so just asking it to just proceed with caution, I think, with the cars, because obviously they're still furiously warming up their tyres and the GT3 vehicles in behind, so we'll just wait and see whether the 26 can take the escape road in good time, just to allow the group of
I think it
30.
stopped to let them past, actually. It stopped on track now on our...
So it should allow them to carry on. I'd imagine they'll do one additional lap.
There it is.
Under the safety car, and then it'll allow the recovery truck to then venture through to the escape road and take the car back into the pits. But they head downhill through towards turn 10, and it's Mosca, Haase, Baumann, Ralph Aaron, Levente Revesz, Tom Empson, Dean McDonald, Carol Bash, Matteo Cairoli, Mackenzie Cresswell, that's your top 10, Steve Jans, Zach Meakin, Jamie Stanley, Jaden Kelly, Anthony Bartone, Fabio Babini, Philip Salicado, Rodrigo Testa, Adam Ali, Charlie Hollings, Francesco Simonazzi, Louis Michael Dorbecker, Odun Gudmundsson, Dexter Muller, Riemann Voss, Gino Forgione, Antal Zygo, Alfredo Hernandez, Kalila Letlarka, and Stanislav Jedlinski, who are still out on track at the moment. Great news, actually, for Stanislav Jedlinski and also Christian Korzanowski, because they're currently routed to the rear at the moment, but as we know, Christian Korzanowski furiously quick, and we mentioned about his prior successes in the VW Castrol Cup. Well, now back again here in the International GT Open, and their Ferrari is right on the rear, and they could land a blow here over the AM class. Charlie Hollings leading the AM class at the moment in 20th overall, currently staying ahead of Francesco Simonazzi behind Adam Ali as well. But with the group so tightly packed together, it's a great opportunity for Olymp Racing not only to cause a stir in Pro-Am, obviously as they have done over the many years, but today they have a serious chance at AM.
Yeah, most certainly. Just trying to keep an eye on this car. The 26 is still on track in that recovery vehicle.
I say that, I've just seen the Stanislav Jedlinski is in fact a lap down at the moment, unless he crosses the line. No, it does look like he's a lap down.
Yeah,
so,
he's a lap down,
so yeah, it's going to be a struggle actually for Jedlinski. But I thought that it might be fortunate for them to be on the end of the safety car, because it could bring them all closer together. But obviously now that's not the case. Safety car is in this lap though, Ewan.
Fantastic. There we go then. So we will go racing in about 90 seconds time, and we're just waiting for confirmation of when the driver changeover will open. Now on our screen it says safety car in this lap. On our official screen here it does not say that, and the lights are still on too. Oh, it does say safety car in this lap. Fantastic.
Yeah,
sorry, my bad.
Safety car is in this lap. Mosca will be, of course, eventually the leader, and Haase will be also looking to try and drag out whatever they can before the driver change window opens up. I'd imagine, though, Haase will do the optimal amount of the stint before handing it over to Simon Riker, just to obviously give Easterland every opportunity. Here, of course, Dominic Baumann will be handing over to Valentin Pierberg. So Baumann, you can bet your bottom dollar he's going to do the mammoth portion of the stint. I would imagine the first driver to come in will be Levente Revesz to swap over with Maxi Gertz. So they now make their way up the hill through towards the right-handers. That'll take them towards the start-finish line once again. And of course, Mosca bringing them down to a crawl. And Haase watching every move that he makes. Obviously, Haase will look to return the serve after Mosca made the move that he did not too long ago. Of course, we've been under safety car now for quite some time now, but as they quicken, heading through the final two corners, and it will be Mosca heading through the final bend at turn 14 and blasting down the straight as the rest of them follow suit. And they're going to put pedal to the metal for the second time in this race now. And it's Haase chasing after them, as well as Dominic Baumann in behind too. It's nose to tail. Mosca trying to get some heat into the tyres, but just look at the gap that's been created already. It's wheel to wheel though further back. Carol Bash on the attack of Dean McDonald through towards turn 1. McDonald looking to go very shallow to try and defend, but it looks like Bash has taken the place. And up into P7 now, our Pro-Am P2 sitter, but still with a ways to go to catch Dominic Baumann in P3 overall.
So it's Pro, then Pro-Am. Dominic Baumann leading the way, and there's 5 Pro cars in between he and Carol Bash in the 777, then in 8th position. So looking strong, but Bash up to 7th, past Dean McDonald, of course. So 4 cars now, but Tommaso Mosca, look at the gap he's created so quickly on Christopher Haase. 0.8 of a second, that is phenomenal. Now, the big question is, there'll be so many tactical opportunities for the garages now when they bring their drivers in. They can't yet, we had no indication yet of when that window opens. It should still be the full 12 minutes, so you'd anticipate it fairly quickly. But of course, we want to get some racing laps in for these stint one drivers.
Yeah, Jaden Kelly we're just riding on board with, making his way up through Verth Curving, have a lovely run. Just clipping that rear left tyre into the gravel as well. Not the only one to touch it though, a couple of other cars also gracing it with their presence. Here comes again though, the 27 up the inside, and Jaden Kelly through past Jamie Stanley and nearly rubbing the front right at the same time of Anthony Bartone's car at that particular moment, but no harm, no foul just yet. Bartone looking for a cheeky manoeuvre on his pro-class competitor as they head down in towards the final corner at turn 14. There you can see Levente Revest now making his way around the final corner. The driver change window is now on, and therefore they can make changes, and therefore the second drivers will step into the cars and the handicaps will be serviced as now Mosca pulls out a 1.5 second gap up at the front. But remember, of course, not forgetting the handicaps that do have to be played out. The 51 might be leading, but that could all fall afoul later on, though I must say the AF Corsa I don't think actually has a handicap to service here at this stage, so Mosca might have the advantage in that case. Kelly now recorded as ahead of Anthony Bartone and Jamie Stanley, obviously overtaking the Jamie Stanley's car. Is now into the pits, comes the 74. Now that, of course, is Yalma Berman stepping in, and Axel Jeffries in place of Kalila Letlarka. Stanislav Jedlinski now coming out. Christian Korzanowski in the AM class Olymp Racing Ferrari. And we also have Yannick Mettler stepping in place of Dexter Muller. In comes as well. Well, there is the number 5 just making its way down the pit lane. And that's Stanislav Jedlinski, and Christian Korzanowski just walking towards the car, and he'll help Stanislav out of the car in a bid to take in the second stint home. But with the driver change window now opened up, it's now all down to the front runners. When do they decide to come in? I would imagine towards the very bitter end of it. 10 minutes and 30 with change on now. So
it will not close until 16 minutes before the end of this race. So the likes of Tommaso Mosca, if he is flying around enjoying himself, by all means stay out there till the very death. So 16 minutes potentially is all the second stint drivers are going to enjoy of this race too at Barca.
Yeah, well, now the gap, 2.3, and in comes Levente Revest. No surprise to see him come in. Obviously, Maxi Goertz will be ready to take over. That's our championship leader, everybody, and looking to take a second consecutive race, and the safety car might have been their best friend in this race this afternoon.
Yeah, Maxi Goertz will jump into that one. Of course, Goertz has been involved in 3 of the 4 wins so far this season. First time in was at Spa-Francorchamps, where they won the double pointer. Also in the car, Paul Ricard, and of course, yesterday looking to make it 2 in a row and extend that lead from 6 points and onwards. James Kell comes in, handing over to Timo O'Donnell, handing in to James Kell.
Yeah, obviously double stop at Greystone as well, because they brought in Jaden Kelly, so Josh Rattigan's going to jump in. Remember, he stuck it on pole for yesterday's race, was really quick, has had a really strong breakthrough weekend back at Red Bull Ring, and he's continued that here at Barcelona. Obviously, we'll see how he gets on towards the closing stages. The 21 now going under the change at the moment, and that's Michele Rugolo stepping in place. There's a great chance of winning yet another AM race here this weekend. Obviously, we're still yet to see Charlie Hollings, Ardu Goodmanson or Alfredo Hernandez come in. Dennis Vashek now stepping in at Racing Trevor's BMW. But look at the gap now, 3.3 between Mosca and Haase. Further back, Baumann in third. And we also have Ralph Aaron, and look at this as well from Tom Empson. And pushing along, oh my goodness, up the inside, a little bump draft coming through turn 10. And Ralph Aaron, I think, got caught unawares, and that's Empson for now, up into 5th place.
That is a little get out the way tap,
4th place
isn't it?
now even. Sorry, I do apologise.
Yeah, absolutely. Are we going to see that again? Is this the replay? No, yes it is. Out my way, please. Off you go. So that is Ralph Aaron making way, not making way for Tom Empson. So that is a change for 3rd place in the Pro-Am. Up next is Dominic Baumann in 3rd overall, and around about a 2nd up the road. And
look at this, you can just see there that it looks like Tom Empson, I think for a brief moment, I think was just looking to give the place back, and we'll get confirmation of that. Mikey Porter is going to be swapping in for Zach Meakin now at Optimum Motorsport McLaren. And just looking at this now, we'll get confirmation as whether they have made the swap. It looked like Tom Empson was slowing on the straight just a little bit there, so whether he felt a little bit guilty of making that manoeuvre, I'm not quite sure. But as we now watch them continuing around the course, and yes, indeed, he's giving it back to Ralph Aaron, so no surprises, but all of this now unfolding in front of Matteo Cairoli in 7th place. Bash now occupying P4. Is obviously now ahead of Ralph Aaron, so I'm wondering whether Bash actually overtook Emson and Ralph Aaron, because, of course, Ralph Aaron, only because Tom Emson slowed up.
So whilst they were being gentlemen, he thought, right, I'll have a bit of that.
Carol Bash thought, well, this is my chance, so I'm going to happily take the place. So Bash now through into 4th, ahead of Ralph Aaron, Emson down in 6th. Cairoli also on the tail as well.
So he was told to give it back. He was on screen, to give it back to Emson.
I would imagine he would have done anyway. I think that there was enough contact. I think it was a gentleman's handshake as well.
I think he gave it back before even the signal came up.
It probably did. Heading down in towards the left-hander. It might have been the team also voicing on the radio, just saying, please let him have it back. Obviously, I think they knew what was coming, I think, at that point. But Carol Bash leading this contingent through in the treble 7 Ferrari 296 GT3. He's also got Dennis Faschek for company in the Racing Trevor BMW. And they are coasting onwards with Ralph Aaron in behind as well, as we now watch them come through the left-hander. That's the Get Speed Mercedes taking a bit of a turn in the gravel. Of course, it was Steve Jans driving that before. Aaron Walker's behind the wheel of it this time and trying to close on the back of Mikey Porter. In comes your championship contender and former race leader and pole sitter, Christopher Haase. Simon Reichert taking over the drive.
Yeah, it's not a surprise.
Tom Emson's in as well.
They've got a handicap to serve too. Don't forget, of 10-15 seconds for Christopher Haase, Simon Reichert.
Got 5 seconds.
5 seconds penalty. Handicap, sorry. And that's not a surprise. He'd lost 5 seconds in these, what we had, 2.5, 3 racing laps. Lost 5 seconds to Tommaso Mosca. So not surprised to see that changeover up on the jacks.
Yeah, well, Haase stepping out. Obviously, it was exceptional yesterday. And they might have been slightly undone with the nature of the safety car today. Tom Leben and Tom Emson also swapping over. I mean, that's racing, folks. That's how it works. But now getting set, ready to go out again. And I would say this car has got a great chance of performing here. But just how much time did they lose having to give the place back and handing it over to Carol Bash in their start? But remember, of course, Marcin Jedlinski is going to jump in to the treble 7 Ferrari when the time comes. The driver change period coming to an end in around 5 minutes and 30's time. At the moment, it's Ralph Aaron in 4th place being closed up upon by Cairoli. I mean, I can understand the reason why Easterland gave that place up. There is no benefit to remaining out on track. They may as well ensure that they're out of traffic, go for the stop, get it out, over and done with, allow Riker to have some kind of clearer air or something, take a risk for that. And same could be said for the elite racing Ferrari. Might be a good time to box Tom Emson, though. Tom Leben, very, very fast as a driver. And
we've just had a new fastest lap off the race by Maxi Goetz, a 1:40.616, went purple in Sector 1 and brought it home quickly. Green's in Sector 2 and 3. So fastest man on track is the number 11. And he is the championship leader, of course, trying to make his way back through the pack. Of course, plenty of changeovers still to happen. I make it 12 cars still to pit in the last 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, Philip Salicata getting past Fabio Babini as well at the same time. And we've got Daniel Ali and also Charlie Hollings coming in as well. Louis Michael Dorbecker, Ardun Goodmanson. Mark Sampson will take over the 188. So Daniel Ali and Adam Ali will swap over. And then they'll take the second stint then for the remainder. So we will see probably James Kell move on through, as well as Aaron Walker, who's currently 3.8 seconds behind the pro driver. As now Team Tor undertake their change. Torvalder, Guzrasen and Ardun Goodmanson taking the swap. Torvalder, of course, taking the next stint in the Z06, obviously undergoing their own changes with Daniel Ali as well. As now we see the 51 of Tommaso Mosca still continuing around the track. They can still do one more lap, I think, at the moment before they then decide to come in. There's the 28th of Louis Michael Dorbecker for the BDR Grupo Prom team, undertaking their stop, and in behind them the Garage 59 McLaren 720S GT3 of Mark Sansom with Charlie Hollings doing the initial stint. Mark Sansom will take the final stint. There is your race leader, Tommaso Mosca, and yes, I would imagine one more lap will be undertaken. We've got 19 minutes and 20 to go, but more importantly, 3 minutes and 18 left in the driver change window. Yeah,
if they don't do it out, every single car that passes the window now has to go in on the next time round. 3 minutes 10 remaining, and it's about a 1:40 lap. So we are coming to the end of the driver changeover. Tommaso Mosca will leave it to the very, very end, as will Dominic Baumann and Carol Bash. Ralph Aaron still yet to pit. Who else is out there? Jamie Stanley, Mackenzie Cresswell, Philippe Silicata. And the only car in the AM not to pit yet, Alfredo Hernandez.
Yeah, well done there to Torvalda Gisrasen as well, giving way to the race leader. Obviously didn't want to impact the situation going on track. And look at this, obviously now we've got Simon Riker in the Easterlent Audi, Tom Leben also out on track as well. So these two parts of the pro class, and currently featuring towards the P14, P13 positions. Leben looking for a move to venture into P13 here for the Elite Racing Ferrari team, looking to bounce back after yesterday's disappointment of not being able to take the start of the race, coming in during the formation lap with little to no power. But they've also got Mikey Porter for company, and also not forgetting in behind, I believe that's Fabian Schiller as well. So this is quite the collective we have of pro cars now all matched together. Simon Riker is going to be a very busy boy for the next stint, as he now looks to try and keep this group in behind. And that Ferrari 296 we know has dazzling straight line speed, and Tom Leben is going to make use of every ounce of it as they fly down through towards turn one again. Great start, great opportunity here for Tom Leben to get a place up here on Simon Riker as they make their way down in towards turn one. Late on the brakes here for Leben as he looks long around the outside, wheel to wheel on the run up through, trying to find some track surface as they take the curb. And it looks like as they squeeze each other on and off, it will be Tom Leben through, and Mikey Porter looking to take full opportunity, and through goes the Optimum car, chasing after Tom Leben in the Ferrari.
Well, my goodness. And this is Tommaso Mosca into the pits now for the driver changeover. That is our race leader as it stands. We're now handing over to Carl Bennett.
Here comes Schiller as well, having a look around the outside, looking to carry the speed of the AMG GT3 around on Simon Riker. And bear in mind, this is all in all about the pro battle and all about the overall championship, and this could greatly upset Easterlent's chances this season. Of course, we're now seeing the SPS Performance Automotive now getting swapped out. Valentin Pierberg in place of Dominic Baumann. We've also got Carl Bennett in at the Ferrari. Of course, they're still in the pits. They have to serve no penalty, or no handicap, I should say, in this driver change window. We've got Dawson in at 2Cs. We've got Laurent de Beer stepping in for Jamie Stanley. It's now the 27 of Josh Rattigan now goes on the attack, as well of Aaron Walker. Of course, that's a pro entry against Pro-Am, but of course, Aaron Walker, the pro driver in this instance, the young man from Hereford, actually putting a big stopper on Josh Rattigan there coming through the final corner.
So all driver changeovers have now taken place, and we have got 60 minutes of pure racing to decide our winner. Things will start to settle in just a second.
And look at this as well. We've got the entry, certainly the cars now rejoining the circuit. Now, where is Carl Bennett at the moment? He's already making his way through turn 3. James Kell is in second place now for Greystone. This is the same Greystone car that had won the race back at Portimao at the very start of the season. They also were in command during the Spa 500 until it all went wrong with a power failure, but they are now back in action this time after the misfortunes of yesterday. Now it's Marcin Jedlinski being tackled by Mikey Porter. Porter moves through into 6th place. Leben has already gone past him and is trying to close up on the back of Rattigan. Greystone have got 2 cars inside the top 4 as now we see Christopher Haasser and now Fabian Schiller, oh not Christopher Haasser, sorry, Simon Riker and Schiller coming together, and Schiller into the gravel and now has to rejoin, and he will now be behind Maxi Goertz, who moves into 10th place.
So after the performance yesterday, 3rd place overall on the podium, that is not what they wanted. 81 points so far this season, so not in championship contention, but still making their way up the rankings. Now, just going back to our leaders, look, this is going to be an incredible last 15 minutes.
And that's Riker inside of Valentin Pierberg into P8, so he's trying to climb back through the rostrum, and now he's on the tail of Marcin Jedlinski. Of course, this is a slightly awkward situation for Easterlent Audi. They've got to try and get past some of these secondary class drivers and then make their way through to try and catch up with the likes of Mikey Porter and also Tom Leben. But as they now come through down the long straight, you can also see Maxi Goertz, who is also looking to unleash the power of the Mercedes-AMG GT3. Remember, of course, due to the win yesterday, they had to serve an extended handicap here today. Is now the 27 of Josh Rattigan up the inside now of Aaron Walker. Walker's not going to be able to defend that one. He's going to obviously not cause a stopper. Walker fighting for the Pro-Am win. Rattigan now in the podium places. Greystone in 2 and 3 right now. And look at Simon Riker around the outside of Marcin Jedlinski, looking to recover something out of this race here for Easterlent as they cruise through. Through past goes Tom Lemon on Aaron Walker. Here comes Riker through turn 4, and he will move up into that P7 position.
Yeah, it is now a recovery mission for Simon Riker after the changeover and the handicap to be served. Running in second, or starting in first,
here we go
running
again.
second for so long.
Maxi Goetz coming through past Marcin Jedlinski. We've got Fabian Schiller now alongside Valentin Pierberg, and it's Schiller now up into P10. So now Schiller and Maxi Goetz are going to be reunited very shortly, because through goes Schiller on what looks to be the treble 7 of Marcin Jedlinski. And this is all because of the huge gaggle of cars constraining under the safety car just before the driver change period. I can tell you that the stewards' decisions on cars 75, folks. That is, of course, Libor Milotta. They've got 10 seconds of time penalty added to the race time. That was after the crash with Santalok Audi that caused the safety car. Remember, folks, that was Marcus Pavarud who was taken out of the race. They had that fire in the back of the car. Of course, that was the ISR that led to that. As now Mikey Porter drifts by Aaron Walker this time as he looks to continue on his quest to catch up with Tom Leben. It's now Carl Bennett, 7.4 seconds ahead of James Kell. In terms of the lap times, Carl Bennett faster than Kell by 0.8 of a second based on what happened over the last lap.
So Tommaso Mosca and Carl Bennett's championship is absolutely still alive. They dropped between 5 and 7 points yesterday on their title rivals Revesz and the pair of Haas and Riker. They are 23 points off the championship lead and 17 off second place. However, a win here without Revesz or Haas and Riker getting into the top 3 would do absolute wonders for their championship challenge.
It'll be huge for them. It'll bring them closer to Easter Lent Racing at this stage. Obviously, at the moment, Simon Riker down in P7 will collect points regardless, but at the moment is Carl Bennett and of course Tommaso Mosca after that early stint, fantastic early stint as well for Mosca, managing to carry the speed of the Ferrari 296 and all to the benefit of it, of course. We're looking to lift a driver's title aloft once again. It's been a long time since the last time they managed to do that. We look back to previous Barcelona winners, the likes of Raffaele Gianmaria, as also Ezekiel Perez Companc, who won back in 2015 in race 2, and of course I think that's their sole overall victory that they've actually had in this series at this circuit. But in terms of the overall drivers' championships, Alvaro Barber and Pierre Caffer winning back in 2010, can't forget that, of course, and they haven't had a drivers' champion since. But they'll have every chance this time around as we await the final 11 minutes and 14. Here, once again, we have the ISR Audi of Philip Salicata, obviously Libor Milotta, also part of this too, trying to hunt down after the 74 of Hjalmar Berman. It looks like Berman actually managed to overtake Libor Milotta here, and absolutely has, and defends the place brilliantly. So Hjalmar Berman up into 15th.
Now, just a side note to this story at the front. Amin Ran, who was the car that was stranded on the pit grid at the very start of the race, has rejoined at some point during. He's 7 laps down, but he's out there racing, currently lying last but 7th in Pro-Am, just to get some points on the board.
Well, that's it. Berman up into 15th now, 1.8 away from Ramirez. Now we take a look at Leben, 8/10, now 6/10 as they cross the stripe. On the tail of Josh Rattigan. Now that's the 2 former teammates in the GT4 European Series now coming together. They were both won the championship together. Now they are on-track enemies. Bennett once again lurching the time gap forward against James Kell at the moment. That's the 51 and our race leader as well. 8.8 now is the gap. 4.3 between Rattigan and Kell. I can tell you that Rattigan quicker than James Kell by 0.7 of a second. Over the course of the last lap. So if he carries that on, he could be in the hunt for a P2 here in the not too distant future. He's only 4.3 back from Kell at the moment. 2 Greystones sit inside the top 3, which would be a fantastic result for them. Of course, they would prefer to take a win at the very least, but Carl Bennett putting a stopper in that as things stand so far. As they come down in towards the left-hander, there is Maxi Goetz chasing after Simon Riker in a battle over P7. Of course, these are the top 2 in the Drivers' Championship. These 2 car entries anyway. Goetz are not in the championship fight, but of course flying the flag for Levente Revesz here in this exchange. And further back, Fabian Schiller joining them for the ride as well after Anthony Bartone's opening stint. But looking good for Aaron Walker at the moment. Pro-Am win could be in his pocket alongside Steve Jans, of course. And then further down, of course, Michele Rugolo, 24th and leader of the AM class, ahead of Dennis Vašek and Mark Sampson.
Yeah, the real fight in Pro. I mean, overall 10, 11, 12, Jedlinski, Pierberg and Dawson. One of those is going to miss out on the podium as things stand, taking into account that Walker stays in 6th overall and top in Pro-Am. Now, at the top there, Carl Bennett in the 51. What that will do, if things stay as they are and they get the full 15 points for the win, and Simon Riker and Maxi Goetz stay in 7th and 8th, that would mean the gap from the top is reduced from 23 points down to only 16, which going into the last race at Monza, which is a double point scorer, that means everything is going to be on the line for at least 3 teams in the last race of the season. Beautiful.
Riding on board with Josh Rattigan now, heading uphill. Currently sat P3 overall and has had a wonderful entry into GT3 racing competition. And I must say, there must be the McLaren factory team looking at him intently for a future drive. You do have to wonder that. We'll wait and see. But definitely the blossoming of a really successful career could be underway. And of course, racing against such grand pros in this field, such as this man Fabian Schiller, chasing after fellow factory driver Maxi Goetz. Of course, both representing the Mercedes stable, but in different teams. And of course, if you are Maxi Goetz, former reigning DTM champion from last season against Schiller, who definitely one of the most successful young talents coming through the fold. Still plenty of time left in his career in the future. And it just goes to show that GT3 racing is definitely alive and well, with more and more young talents coming out of the realms of single-seaters, exploring the sports car option. As Artem Petrov moves ahead of Valentin Pierberg now, but that's a pro car overtaking a Pro-Am, so Pierberg will remain in Pro-Am 3rd at the moment, but is joined by Charles Dawson, who, representing 2C's Motorsport, would love to stick his car into the top 3 of the Pro-Am fight. Axel Jeffries has overtaken Johannes Selger for 21st place, and now 2.7 away from Laurent de Meus. But Tom Leben still behind Rattigan at the moment, and if anything, Leben closing in on Rattigan. The gap between them over the last lap, 0.2 of a second, and that will only close. 8-second time penalty going to the 1:08. Now that is Amir Naran by the looks of things, but obviously they didn't actually take the start. The 28 as well of Louis Michael Dorbecker getting an 8-second time penalty for less time than handicap.
Now, this battle on track here is our top 2 of the championship, despite it being 7th and 8th overall. Fabian Schiller very much involved in the Mercedes at the back too. However, if this stays, is it the worst case scenario, despite where they are overall in this race, as long as Simon Riker stays ahead of Maxi Goetz, then the gap to Laurent Revesh will at least come down, even by a small margin, before that last race. So he needs to put everything into not just chasing in front, but keeping the man behind him, Maxi Goetz, behind him.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big mission from Simon Riker. I mean, this would be sensational if he's able to do this, because it lessens the damage in terms of the championship, and it takes everything to Monza. Basically, every single team involved in the fight will be stacking their chips to the centre of the table ahead of our next round at Monza. The ideal scenario would have been that they came away with a race win today, but obviously that's not going to happen. And at this point, they've just got to lessen the damage. The fortunate side of things is that they have got Maxi Goetz behind them, but obviously they need to keep this up for the remaining 5 minutes and 25 seconds at this very late stage. Of course, at the top of the championship coming into this race, it was 6 points the gap between Haase and Riker and Laurent Revesh at the top of the shop. But it'll drift closer just by a small means, but it also thrusts Marcel Mosca and Carl Bennett right into the thick of the action as well. So all of a sudden, what looked to be a brewing 2-car scrap for the title is now ever more becoming a 3-car scrap going to Monza. Let's have a look at some slow-mo shots. This is Carl Bennett making his way through turns 1 and turns 2. Of course, remember, they will be taking handicaps across to the to the Monza 500, but all this will be coming in the 3rd stint of those pit stops, remember, because there's 3 stops in the 500 race when we go to the Temple of Speed.
Now, you may see in the background of some of your pictures, it shouldn't affect us, but there are some massive rain clouds forming pretty much on all sides of the Circuit de Barcelona and Catalonia. However, with 4.5 minutes remaining, it shouldn't affect us. Oh, well, a touch in the back, maybe.
Yeah, a bit of a feisty moment there. Valentin Pierberg trying to fight past Marcin Jidlinski, and that was for Pro-Am P2, and he's got it as well. And through goes Charles Dawson. That's for Pro-Am Podium as well at the same time. So Marcin Jidlinski, in one solid swoop, has just lost 2 places in the Pro-Am battle, and overall has now dropped down to P13 with Marcelo Ramirez moving into the gravel. That opens up things for Libor Milota to move past him, so he's now into 16th place. Mettler also involved, so Yannick Mettler now with a great chance to essentially push the car barn by SPS to a second podium appearance in Pro-Am.
And look at this Am battle. There's the version into the gravel, just about holding it in one piece together. But this battle for the AM, once the scores come back on the screen, have a look at this, because there's 5 AMs in 6 positions from 23rd down to 28th right now. And they're, of course, fighting for 1, 2, and 3. The man in the middle of them is Johannes Zelger in the Pro-Am competition in the 79.
Well, Valentin Pierberg is leading a train of Pro-Am cars now, all fighting over the podium places. Charles Dawson currently sat in Pro-Am 3rd at the moment. There's Marcin Jidlinski now with Libor Milota for company. Of course, Milota, remember, they have a penalty to the ISR Audi team after the contact with the Santa lock, as now he has a look up the inside coming through turn 9. And they'll descend down through towards turn 10. So it doesn't really matter what Libor Milota does at this point. They won't feature on the podium if the time gaps remain as slender as it does. And Mettler has got past Jedlinski and has moved up into 14th overall, but also has made ground in the Pro-Am Championship. As we take a look at the 33 of James Kell now with Josh Rattigan, 2 Greystones together. Now, friendly fighting, please, chaps. Of course, you're all fighting for the same things, points, but of course, for James Kell, it's slightly more imperative. They've been in this championship a little bit longer, and therefore want to try and retain this podium finish in P2. But Rattigan equally looking for their best result of the season. And at the same time, you know, they're all looking to further their own gains and causes here in the GT Open. Now this is, oh my goodness, a big collision between Marcin Jidlinski. And it looked like with the ISR Audi team as well. And just look at this evasive action had to be taken for the 19 of Robin Rogalski. As we ride on board now with Josh Rattigan again. Pole sitter yesterday ahead of race 1. I do wonder whether we're going to see some rainfall now with the clouds getting darker over Sky.
You're right, it is getting very dark significantly. We have got 1 minute 30 of racing. It's not going to affect the race, hopefully, but it might affect the presentation shortly.
Could well do. As they head down through towards the heavy braking zone at turn 10, Rattigan in the tail fins of James Kell. Kell with the inside line, but does Rattigan try something up the inside? He certainly will. It's going to be wheel-to-wheel between the 2 Greystone GT McLarens. All's fair in love and war, and they're going to rub paint off each other. Both McLaren 720Ss doing battle here at Barcelona. But it's James Kell, the better in this exchange, but Rattigan is far from done just yet as they come out of turn 13, 14 to come, and then they'll duel down the long straight. Who's going to get a better run down through towards turn 1? The lights blinking on the front of the 2 McLarens, but keep your eyes peeled further back because Tom Leben coming into this fight as well, and we know the straight line speed is there in the Ferrari 296, and we're on the final lap of racing here. Rattigan with a slight feint to the inside, unable to make the move. James Kell holding on to second. Fabulous battle between the 2 Greystones.
This is brilliant, but I'm sure nerve-wracking for the garage. The 2 teammates going neck and neck. And of course, behind them, the 3rd Ferrari, well, McLaren, sorry, 12-second gap at the front there. So this is all over the win for the Tom Bennett. And then Josh Rattigan, 0.3 between him and Tom Leben. So 3rd place on the overall podium still to play for. But we'll keep our eyes on this Greystone battle first of all.
Kell getting a little bit deep into the gravel as well. Luckily enough, I don't think he actually took a lot of it. Mettler has moved up in a spot in Pro-Am and is now on the tail of Charles Dawson. If they're lucky, they might be able to land a blow late at the very death and potentially scoop up a Pro-Am P3, but there's a lot going on in Pro-Am. There's a lot going on in Pro at the moment overall, with 2 Greystone GT McLarens currently fighting over the podium spots with Tom Leben. But this is your race leader, and it's Carl Bennett behind the wheel of the Ferrari 296 for AF Corse. So they celebrated 2 wins, both happening and occurring at Paul Ricard and race 1 at Red Bull Ring. They won those consecutively, but a magical number 3 is just around the corner, throwing themselves back in the championship equation. It's Carl Bennett, your winner here at Barcelona, alongside Tommaso Mosca. AF Corsa lifted aloft once again, and it will be James Kell coming around the corner. They feature back on the podium, along with their teammates Josh Rattigan and, of course, Jaden Kelly. It's a double Greystone appearance on the top steps of the podium. Tom Leben finishing a gallant 4th place. Great drive for Elite Racing Ferrari, with Mikey Porter in 5th for Optimum, and Aaron Walker taking a splendid victory in Pro-Am, finishing in P6 overall. Simon Riker holds off Maxi Gertz. That could be essential ahead of Monza as well. And of course, I know exactly what this means. Strap yourselves in, folks. We have got very easily a 3-horse race for this title. You could throw Elite Racing Ferrari in there as well, potentially. They had a great result today. Make that a potential 4-horse race ahead of this title charge heading to the end of the season.
That couldn't have gone much better for Carl Bennett and Tommaso Mosca in the 51. That's everything they needed from this race to get big points, a win, and also have the likes of Riker and Gertz drop down positions. So Leventi Ravesh will be not a leader by 23 points over Tommaso Mosca and Carl Bennett. It's going to be closer to 15 or 16 once all the numbers are crunched. Of course, we've got drop scores to come too. That'll play into it as well, but nobody will drop as much points as, let's have a look, Tommaso Mosca. They're going to drop currently 6 points. Let's not do too much maths right now. Haase and Riker have had 2 no scores. They'll drop nothing. So coming into Monza, I mean, get your calculators out. It is going to go down to the absolute wire, the 2025 GT Open Championship.
Yeah, you're getting good value for your viewing, everybody. It's splendid to see. It's a big points taken overall for Aaron Walker and Steve Jans. What a way to end our home weekend here in the International GT Open. Of course, the championship takes centre stage here at Barcelona, and we enjoyed every single aspect of it. We had turbulent conditions. Fortunately enough, we didn't see the rainfall during the race. It's held off to a certain degree for now. But as now Carl Bennett makes his way into the pits, a marvellous achievement for both driver and team, both drivers and team here in this case, as they look to park up in Parc Fermé. But Maxi Gertz, of course, held off. Only 3 points taken here by Leventi Ravesh and Maxi Gertz. So it all goes down to the final round. We look forward to seeing what occurs as now the celebrations begin at AF Corsa. Tommaso Mosca, the first on hand to congratulate Carl Bennett, their 3rd win of the season. And all smiles and hugs. They are in this championship. And AF Corsa in for a chance of winning a Drivers' Championship for the first time ever since Alvaro Barber and Pierre Caffer back in 2010. And could you imagine if they do it at their home race at Monza as well in the 500?
It would be incredible. Absolutely. So all smiles from Greystone, 2nd and 3rd. Great team performance. They did, I'd love to be down there just to check the paint chips on the left and right of those cars, because they did just about do a little bit of rubbing. Everybody wants to win, of course.
Martin Petrov picking up that final point as well alongside Francesco Simonazzi. So well done to them. But quite an incredible complexion now leaves us here. Obviously now Leventi Ravesh 123 points as I'm working it out on screen. Obviously we get the clarification just shortly, folks. 118 going to Christopher Haase and Simon Riker, so the points gap is still very slender. We're talking 5 points, I think, according to my calculations here. Let's run you through the top 3 though. Jaden Kelly, Josh Rattigan finishing very quickly, very nearly challenging James Kell. But always very friendly between the Greystone GTs. They're celebrating a double podium overall today with James Kell and Dean McDonald returning to the top steps of the podium. But winners and entering the championship fight, Carl Bennett and Tommaso Mosca, they've given themselves every chance. Their 3rd win of the season, and they'll be standing by with Alfredo.
Race winners for the 3rd time, Tommaso Mosca, Carl Bennett, and now the situation in the championship is even more interesting. Tommaso, how was the first part of the race?
It was a good part. I mean, we had many safety cars, so we couldn't have more gap than what I had. We went for a very slick setup, so we risked a bit, but it worked out a lot. Very good. And then Carlo, when he took over the car, was perfect. Marvelous job from him. He is one of the best now in the championship, so I'm very happy.
So you finished the job. Well done.
First of all, I'd like just to thank you, AF Corsa, A14 Management, and also Origin Fragrance. The car was amazing, car was perfect, and yeah, Tommaso just did an amazing job from the start, overtaking cars. I just did my thing, preserved the tires, hit my marks, you know, it just was consistent, and yeah, brought it home to a win, so yeah.
And in Monza, we will see a big battle, a three-way battle. Well done, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's take you through the highlights of race 2, and of course starting behind the safety car after Amir Naran's car stopped right in the centre of the long straight. Didn't take the start of the race, but eventually did get going and finished, of course, later on. We eventually did hit green flags. Christopher Haase taking them down through towards turn 1 with Dominic Baumann in second place. But eventually, of course, they whittled their way down. Tommaso Mosca moving up the inside of Dominic Baumann, coming through turn 10 and running up through towards turn 11 into second. Of course, eventually Mosca would then up the ante once more, looking for that race lead. A fantastic move up the inside that really made all the difference, thrusting them essentially into the championship fight. As we then watched as well this big incident between the Santalot Racing Audi and the ISR Audi. Certainly no friends in the Audi camp here this weekend as Marcus Pavarud was taken out of the race. We also saw Tom Emson looking to go side by side also with Rolf Aaron in the initial. Eventually, though, giving the place back, offering an olive branch to Carol Bash, who went on through later on. Eventually, the driver change window was undertaken, and it would have been Carl Bennett jumping in place of Tommaso Mosca to take the second stint. The two Greystones were also fighting tooth and nail, with James Kell trying to defend against Josh Ratican, who stuck it on pole for race 1 yesterday. Of course, the defence was mighty from Kell. They very nearly rubbed wheel to wheel, licking the paint off each other's cars, but Kell would hang on to that P2 position. Eventually, though, it would lead to victory for AF Corsa for the first time in a long, long time here at Barcelona. Their first win here at the circuit overall since Raffaele Gianmaria and Ezequiel Perez Companc thrusting them into the championship fight. And these are the scenes behind the podium at the moment. Of course, a lot of smiles here for Aaron Walker and Steve Jans, winners of the Pro-Am class as well, the young man from Hereford, alongside Steve Jans, who knows this championship very well, and a very capable driver behind the wheel of the car. Obviously, you have to be to bring it home in the manner that he did. That's exactly what he was looking for, and this will thrust them back into the lead of the Pro-Am Championship. They were just 1 point behind Valentin Pierberg and Dominic Baumann coming into today's race, but that's now all been turned on its head. We're going to kick things off with the overall podium. Of course, it's Ratican and Jaden Kelly. So Josh Ratican, Jaden Kelly on the third step. Greystone also represented on the second tower as well, with James Kell and Dean McDonald. They'll be happy with that performance today to at least bring themselves back onto the podium after the tricky day yesterday. But AF Corsa back on the winning step for the first time since 2015. Overall, as now we enjoy the Italian national anthem. Well, there we are, the passion on show from the AF Corsa garage. The mechanics all stood in a line and celebrating an immense victory for the AF Corsa team. Race win number 3 this campaign. First of all, the Michelin representative presenting the trophies to our third place winning partnership of Josh Ratican and Jaden Kelly. Fantastic performance for Greystone more points in their pocket, and I have to say they're going to flourish as GT drivers going forward, especially Josh Rattican after the pole yesterday. And James Kell, D. McDonald featuring back on the podium as well in second. So we have proud partners at Michelin offering to present the winning trophies. Mr. Santa Maria, boss of the Barcelona circuit here at the Circuit of Barcelona, Catalunya, presenting the winning trophies to Tommaso Mosca and Carl Bennett. And by my calculation here, Ewan, 112 points now at the moment, 6 away from Haase and Riker. Reves 123.
I agree with you. That's the maths I was doing too. So yeah, it's going to be an incredible weekend in Monza. Of course, just the one race with the double points. As you said, I think rightly, all chips on the table, throw everything at it. They know if they can win that race, then they'll pick up at least 6 points. So they do need a couple of things to go their way. A couple of photos being taken.
Josh Rattican prematurely opened his bottle there. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to work very well now, but the rain literally just turned itself on right at the end of the trophy presentation. Now the champagne gets sprayed as the drivers celebrate a marvellous occasion. And Dean McDonald not resting on his laurels with the champagne here and now. As we take a look behind the scenes once again, Alfredo Filippone in full voice. Obviously, we can talk about yet another phenomenal display in terms of the AM class. Obviously, we're going to have the Pro-Am podium next, but Gino Forgione and Michele Rugolo, I make that win number 8 in class now, in fact, if I'm not mistaken.
And it will give them a lead. They were tied, of course, with Mark Sanson coming into this one, who finished third in this race today. So that will give them a 4-point lead going into the title decider at Monza. And with 2 points separating first and second, they could finish second in that championship. And in that case, if Forgione and Rugolo won, it would be a tied championship. I'm guessing it then goes back to most wins if it's tied.
Yeah, it'll go back to count back, you would have thought, with the number of wins scored. Valentin Pierberg, of course, making his way out second this time in Pro-Am. The fight goes on in the Pro-Am class with Dominic Baumann. And, of course, second again today. Would have probably preferred to take the victory to up the ante on Aaron Walker and Steve Jans, but that wasn't possible, as we've already witnessed. But a further 8 points going to Pierberg and Baumann. That's back-to-back 8-pointers here this weekend. We'll put them on 88 as well at the close of play. And it's 89 for Aaron Walker and Steve Jans, 1 point ahead of Baumann and Pierberg, or Walker and Jans right now.
Now, you can hear and see that rain coming down on screen. I can tell you here out the window too. It looks nice and calm in the distance, but something behind us is brewing behind this main grandstand, because it is absolutely hammering down now.
My goodness, absolutely. I think they'll be glad that they finished when they did.
It is absolutely perfect. No good for the next race coming up, but it's perfect for the GT Open.
Yeah, perfect for them. Absolutely right. Mark Sampson, of course, we'll be witnessing him on the AM podium later on, but we'll get to those numbers very shortly. But congratulations, of course, first and foremost, have to go to our drivers in Pro-Am class. And we always have a fantastic championship battle in Pro-Am, continuously, season on season. And it's set to continue once more, of course, following in the footsteps of Marco Polcini, who went back-to-back over the last 2 years. Was incidentally, if my maths corrects me, the only driver to ever go back-to-back as the champagne is sprayed. As we now look at the AM podium, we've got the Racing Trevor, second placing again, this time featuring on the podium steps. And standing tall once again. Of course, this time second place as opposed to the victory step, but they won't mind that. It's been a lovely introduction for both Antal Zygo and Denis Vashek this season so far. And you can see Vashek on the left-hand side, and just look at how happy Antal Zygo is. Of course, he was in full voice when he stood on the top step earlier on, and for good reason. A proud moment as we now see Mark Sampson and Charlie Hollings once again appearing. Mark Sampson still very much in the championship fight in AM class as well. That battle still continuing, and I make that 4 points between our championship leaders, Gino Forgione and Michele Rugolo, against Mark Sampson at the moment. Of course, we're not factoring in the drop scores just yet, but it will all be settled when we go to the Monza 500 next time around. Michele Rugolo and Gino Forgione, 8 times race winners so far this season. That is extraordinary in the AM class.
As a neutral watching on, it is wonderful for the championship for all three to be going down to the wire in Monza and incredibly close to, not just, oh, they're just about made it to Monza. No, every single title will be decided in the second part of those races in the last couple of laps. It's going to be absolutely fantastic to watch. Yeah,
Mr. Santa Maria obviously providing the P3 trophies to Mark Sampson and Charlie Hollings, and the Michelin representative to Antel Zygo and Denis Vashek. Another stint on the podium for them, and they are absolutely thrilled, aren't they? And the winning trophies being presented to the combination of Gino Forgione. They're getting used to this now, and of course Michele Rugolo, who's looking to reclaim the championship once again in Pro-Am, or in Am, I should say. Of course, already a former champion. And they celebrate on the podium. Of course, we're going to take you through the classification before we bring an end to this broadcast. We're teeing up, obviously, for the Monza 500, but it's Tommaso Mosca and Carl Bennett, your winners here at the end of this Barcelona race 2. Dean McDonald, James Kell second, Kelly and Ratigan in third ahead of Tom Leben and Tom Emerson. Mikey Porter, Zach Meakin in fifth. That rounds off your top 5 with Jansen Walker winning in Pro-Am and taking P6 overall. Haase and Riker seventh ahead of Ravesh and Gertz, with Barto and Schiller ahead of Simonazzi and Petrov in P10. Next up, P11, Valentin Pierberg, Pro-Am P2, along with Dominic Baumann, Dawson and Cresswell. 2Cs getting a vastly warm introduction here this weekend, finishing third in Pro-Am. Muller and Mettler in fourth in Pro-Am, ahead of Berman and Voss in 14th. The Ali brothers in 15th, with Ramirez and Aaron in 16th. Then 17th for Neumann and Cairoli, with 18th for Rogalski and Testa. Jeffries, Letlarka 19th, Salicata Milotta in 20th place. Then Demeas and Stanley 21st. Winners of Am, Forgione and Rugolo in 22nd. 8-time race winners in class. Louis Michael Dorbecker 23rd. Antel Zygo alongside Denis Vacek in 24th. Zalgo Babini in 25th. Sansom and Hollings 26th. Jedlinski and Bash 27th. Goodmanson Gizrasen 28th. Ahead of Alfredo Hernandez and Jedlinski and Korzanowski in 30th. Amir Naran finished the race, but 7 laps down. Blanchimont and Pavrud out of the race after the contact with the ISR Audi. And this is the long-awaited championship and how it looks. 123 points is the allocation for Laventia Ravesh. 5 points ahead of Christopher Haase and Simon Riker. Tommaso Mosca and Carl Bennett, 11 points back in third. They are well in this championship fight. And Tom Emerson and Tom Leben, remember, there are still plenty of points on the table. Emerson and Leben could yet be the surprise package heading to Monza next time around, but it's going to be a challenge. But from everyone here at Barcelona, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you for the Monza 500, but from all of us here at Barcelona at a rain-soaked race, it's goodbye.